Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah ma ba'd. The question is asking here about some of the rulings connected to giving zakat on trade goods. How do you give it? Is it 2.5%? Is it given in the same manner as cash money and your savings? You only give it after one full year. A number of questions. Inshallah, hopefully we'll address some of them here. Now, this is very important because, the Muslim Ummah is full of businessmen, and alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us with a great deal of wealth. And as you can imagine, these kind of questions reoccur. And I really do genuinely believe that there are a lot of people who are in trade who perhaps don't know the rulings connected to trade goods and stock. They perhaps just think that it's given on, cash money or whatever. And, perhaps they don't even pay the zakat on, their stock, etc. So what's the ruling on it? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا أَنفِقُوا مِن طَيِّبَاتِ مَا كَسَبْتُمْ. Or you believe, spend from the good things that you have earned with your own hands. You go to work, spend from that. You got trade, you got business, you got different ventures, spend from that because those things are good. مِن طَيِّبَاتِ مَا كَسَبْتُمْ. Those things are good for you, then spend from there. The ulama of tafsir have said, what does it mean that you spend from the things that you have earned? It means zakat. Make sure you give zakat from your trade. More directly, the Messenger of Allah, this hadith in Abu Dawood, an authority of Samur bin Jundab, he said, إن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم كان يأمرنا أن نخرج صدقة من الذين نعد للبيت. The Messenger of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم used to command us to give zakat, sadaqah, from those things that we had prepared for trade. Therefore, the majority of them, Abu Hanifa, Malik, Shafi and Ahmed, have said there is zakat on trade goods. Some of the ulama from Ahl al-Hadith and the Zahiriyah have said that this hadith is not sahih and the ayah doesn't refer to zakat. Therefore, some of them have said, and this is a very minority, a small minority of scholars have said that there is no zakat on trade goods. However, like I said, what seems to be the correct view is that there is, because of the ayah and the tafsir given to it by more than one of the Salaf and the companions, but also this hadith in Abu Dawud, inshallah, at least it is Hasan. Therefore, the ulama from the majority have classified that trade goods is one of those things that you need to give zakat on. How do you give zakat on it? Just like anything else that you have from your wealth. 2.5% of what you've got in total value, and you've had it for one full Hijri year. Now, Hijri year is very important. It's not from January to January. It's from, say, Muharram to Muharram. Every year, there's a deficit in the lunar calendar compared to the solar calendar. Therefore, we must go by Hijri. Not only because of the dates, getting mixed up, but also because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said that this is part of our religion. يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الْأَهِلَّةِ قُلْ هِيَ مَوَاقِيتُ لِلنَّاسِ وَالْحَجِّ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says they ask you about the lunar months. Say that these are things that we can have so we can recognize the different stations and the different acts of worship and the different events that take place in the Muslim's life. That can only come about through the lunar calendar. Therefore, there are 3 or 4 conditions for trade goods. He has to have the intention to trade. So if you've got a car and you sell your car, is that trade goods? Well, you've sold it, but it's not trade goods because your intention in selling that car is not that you trade. It's just that you sold it. But if you've got the car and now you are saying to yourself, this is going to be my first car, and see how it goes, what profit I make from it, I'm going to buy another car. Now your intention has clearly become trade. It has to meet the minimum nisab, and the minimum nisab is 595 grams of silver, which is not a lot. You have to have it for one full Hijri year. If it dips, the value of your stock dips within that Hijri year, then on the stock itself, there is no zakat. However, it can still be considered as zakatable because of your other assets, as we will mention in a little while. And the 4th thing is that you've got possession of it. Sometimes people have something that they've prepared for trade and perhaps it's been confiscated or taken away from them, or they don't have access to it, it's stuck somewhere else and they don't know whether they're going to actually have access to it or get it delivered to them. Then that person doesn't have possession. But if these 4 conditions have been met, then zakat has to be paid on those trade items. how does he work out the zakat? Is it worked on how much he paid for it or its value? So say, for example, he bought a table. He bought loads of tables. I mentioned a table because they're in front of me here. Loads of tables. And he wants to trade in these tables. For each table, he spends £30 in buying it. But its value in the market is £50. What does he give zakat on? 30 or the 50? He gives zakat on the 50. What he expects that the income will be, that is what he pays zakat on. Another question. So now if he's got trade goods worth £1,000, but he expects for it to be bringing in 1.5, for example, or 2,000, he gives zakat on the 2,000, not on the 1,000. But when we are talking about the capital, there's another mas'ala, which is, now this is something that the Hanabila have emphasized, whereas the others from the ulama probably haven't, which is when you have money, say I've got money, I've got £1,000, and I want to invest that money in some kind of business venture and some kind of, some kind of trade. Does the annual lunar year begin when I've bought the items, or does it begin when I've got the capital and the intention? So say in Ramadan, I've got £1,000 and I want to buy loads of bukhur to sell, perfumes, incense. But I don't actually, and I've got the intention in Ramadan, I've got the money as well, but I don't actually buy the item, I don't actually start trade until Shawwal, the month after. When does my annual year begin? Is it in Shawwal when I took possession of the perfumes, or is it in Ramadan? The majority of the ulama have said is when you've taken possession, that's when it begins. Whereas the Hanabila have said, no, you've got the intention, you've got the wealth, you've got possession of it. Just because you've got the capital and it's not physical stock yet, it doesn't necessarily mean it doesn't take the same ruling. Because if we were to say that, then people can then go buy jewelry and then say, oh, well, I don't need to give zakat on it anymore, or that my hold is different, etc. No, what they're saying here is that the capital is going to convert itself into stock, but essentially it's the same thing. And this, for me, seems to be the strong opinion. This is something that has been emphasized by some of the contemporaries like Sheikh Uthaymeen, etc. He says a common mistake that we find with people who trade is that they start the year when they take possession. This is not acceptable. It takes the ruling of you in trade when you've got the intention and when you've got the capital in your hand. And I think that's about it. But there's one last question I'm pretty sure is going to be on people's mind, that you said that you give zakat on what you value for the whole stock to be when it comes to the market value. So I mean, if you've got perfumes, for example, or tables, for example, and you spent £1,000 in investing, but you expect that the revenue and the profit and etc. will be 1,500, 2,000, 3,000 perhaps. But you haven't actually got that 3,000 yet. But that's what you expect, and that's the market value, and that's what you think is going to bring in. That's what you give zakat on the 3,000, not the 1,000 that you've invested. But then the person might then say, okay, well, I don't know if I'm going to get that. Then the ulama have said you go with what you think is likely, what you expect to have as income come towards you. But then what if a person says, what if my stock doesn't go anymore? What if it's just dead? Then the ulama have said that if you've got dead stock, the majority of the ulama have said you still give zakat on it in that manner. Whereas there is a view from the Malikiyya and there's a view from the Hanabila is that the person doesn't need to give zakat on dead stock. He's got items and nobody's buying it, and he's going to probably have to just throw them away or give them away in sadaqah or something like that. There is no zakat on that. Therefore, we have just established now that there is zakat on trade goods. A person gives zakat 2.5% of what he has had for one full Hijri year. He has to have the intention and he's got possession of it. Now, one thing we haven't mentioned so far, which is that his trade goods is combined with all of his other wealth. So whatever he gives zakat on otherwise, it is all put in one sort of estimation, and then he gives zakat on the total. So say, for example, he's got £1,000 savings. She or he has got £500 worth of jewellery in gold. in gold, and they've got £1,000 worth of stock. What's their zakat on? Is it just on the 1,000? No. He's got 1,000 in savings, he's got 1,000 in stock, he's got 500 in jewelry. So then you will have to work it out, and from 2,500, and then the total zakat from 2,500 will be somewhere in the region of £60. Just one side note, and I know I'm digressing here, is that, and this is a mistake that I've also seen people making, and people who go to buy jewelry just generally make, which is that when you are buying jewelry, gold, and silver for that regard, it is not pure gold and it is not pure silver, especially gold. Gold, pure 24 karat gold, is almost indestructible. It's a very, very solid metal. So what they do is they lower it, and you're paying and you're buying jewelry on 22 karat gold, or could even be less, 20 or 18 karat gold. So when a person is calculating the zakat on jewelry, it is not on 24 carats. 24 carats is solid block of gold. If you've got jewelry, you need to get it checked out by somebody who knows what they're talking about, and they'll tell you it could be 16 even, it could be 18, it could be mixed with loads of different metals, it could be the purest form of gold that is used for jewelry, and that would be 22 carat, and then you work it out on that. Therefore, when it comes to trade goods, you mix it all together, and then you give 2.5% of that, and that is the obligation of the third pillar of Islam completed. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only wants for us to purify ourselves and disconnect ourselves from our dunya and connect ourselves to our akhirah when we are doing these acts of worship, especially when they are financial and spiritual. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He allows us to purify ourselves, and He purifies us, and He purifies everything that He gives to us. Allahu a'lam wa sallallahu ala nabiyyina.